Am I the butthole for not allowing my oldest daughter to use my home as her wedding venue because her mother and her family will be invited? I had a restraining order against them until recently. I'm in a pretty bad situation right now. When my stepdaughter got married 2 years ago, she used our home as the wedding venue. We have a meadow in our backyard that is able to accommodate a large number of people, as well as an empty clean barn that can be set up for dinner tables. My daughter was supposed to marry at another location last year, but because of the pandemic, the venue shut down permanently. She's now asked to use my home for the wedding, but I told her my issues with that. I had a restraining order against her mother, my ex, and a few members of her family after threats and harassment were directed towards my wife and myself. The restraining order expired mid-last year, but we haven't heard from them since, but I stayed firm in my decision. This has upset my daughter greatly and she screamed at me, which she's never done. I offered to give her $15,000 for an alternative venue, but now she's adamant about it being our home. I feel extremely uncomfortable giving my ex and her family access to my home because that's where the washrooms will be. My daughter has put this issue on Facebook and I now have all of my extended family against me. This has also stirred up my ex and her family against me. And worse is that my wife and stepdaughter are now being accused of trying to ruin my daughter's wedding when they haven't played any part in it. I'm planning on giving in and letting my daughter use our home for the wedding later this year. But I'm going to tell my wife and stepdaughter not to be around for it. Which I'm sure is going to create a bunch of other issues. Am I the butthole? Update to my post: I messaged my daughter about the outdoor trailer bathrooms and she has refused and said it was a disgusting idea. She then accused me of treating her worse than my stepdaughter and that I play favorites and that I'm a terrible father. She does not want the wedding at our home anymore and hung up. She is no longer picking up my calls. I got an angry call from my mother who says she is hosting her wedding instead. And that I will not be welcomed at the wedding. My father will be walking my daughter down the aisle instead of me. Thanks everyone for the advice. I appreciate it. But I feel like I've made the biggest mistake of my life. I'm completely heartbroken. Phew, what a sticky wicket. Not the butthole under the circumstances. Recommendation: renting porta potties, and maybe a commercial tent for the bride to get ready in, for the day is relatively inexpensive and will ensure that nobody needs access to your home. And security for the house access perhaps? In addition to having some sort of bouncer for the outside activities in case these folks make a scene. Definitely not the butthole. Definitely some security cameras around the house. I'd do the porta potties and tent route and lock the house up on the day of. Also, talk to your daughter. Does she feel a little neglected compared to stepdaughter? Is there something more going on with her that made her unexpectedly scream like that? Did she know about the restraining order and the reason behind it? Info: original poster. How old is your daughter? Your stepdaughter? That your daughter thinks you favor your stepdaughter when her mom has a violent history is a bit strange. Last question: what was the cause of the divorce between you and her mom? I would think she should be able to feel empathy for your perspective if you have a good relationship. That your daughter thinks you favor your stepdaughter when her mom has a violent history is a bit strange. The mom has probably been feeding her lies. Possibly. That is why I wanted to know the age. If she is 21, I could understand her falling for it. At 30? Not so much. Perhaps this could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. A continuation of the way she has been treated in the past? Hence, info. I don't know. An adult woman, at any age, who would air this conflict with her father on Facebook? That's not someone I'd give the benefit of the doubt about whether or not she'd fall for it. It's its own kind of violence against the father. So, she learned that from someone, I bet. Pretty sure the point is, someone who has more recently become an adult has had less time to think for himself or herself and think about any potential manipulation they've undergone. You make it sound like a child who's grown up being manipulated should never fall for it. That being said, we don't know the details, so info is indeed needed. Though I'd be hesitant to tell original poster to open their home to anyone who dares to threaten their family. Oh, I firmly think that original poster should not, under any circumstances, let those people onto his property. Period. As for the daughter, frankly, if she's not old enough to think for herself this way, then she's definitely not old enough to get married. God forbid she has kids before she learns how to actually be an adult, and just carries on this frame of thinking. So I still hold that you don't change the behavior. Removing obstacles that are there for valid reasons is not the way to help your kid grow. It's definitely a manipulative a-hole move on the daughter's part. Wonder who taught her that kind of retaliatory behavior. The fact she goes whining to Facebook is disturbing in a way. My half-sister is in her 40s and still believes every lie her mother has ever told her about our father. Some people never grow out of believing their parents, especially when they were groomed for it. Original poster doesn't mention who got custody of the daughter in the divorce, but I'm going to guess the mother. Same here. My dad met my mom and divorced his money-grubbing ex-wife, my sister's mom. I mean that literally. My dad was working 2, sometimes 3 jobs and was saving tons of money, or so he thought, so he and his family could finally go to Walt Disney World. When the time came for his vacation, he started packing, all excited to go when his ex said they couldn't. When he asked why, she said she spent all of his money. He was furious. By his reckoning, he should have had almost $7,000 saved up after bills had been paid. She spent everything but $500 on literal junk. Expensive hair care products, makeup, stupid door-to-door salesman. The whole 9. He said it was the straw that broke the camel's back. He had to go back to work after canceling their vacation and work tirelessly for 4 more months to earn back only $3,000 to go on a road trip for 4 people. Then he started the divorce proceedings as he had promised his family a vacation. That's when he started pursuing my mom. Their mom told them our dad had been cheating and spent all the money. My sister only had the wool removed from her eyes in her 40s when she moved in with her mom and realized her mom spent the entire inheritance from their grandpa on more crap, literal hoarding situation, and was aiming for their grandma's farm and her funds. Too bad. Sister's granny is a healthy 106-year-old woman with no issues and very active. All this, because should original poster ever require a restraining order in the future, the judge will hear how original poster can't be that worried about them. Only TA if he asks wife and stepdaughter to leave their home. Are you kidding? Not the butthole? You kind of had a restraining order on 2 members and you gave her an opportunity to find somewhere else. Why is she so adamant about your house? I would bet money on her mom laying it onto her about how her father must prefer his stepdaughter and that sort of thing. Adult children can still be hurt and weaponized, particularly if there are any old wounds from childhood that can be picked at. I'm not saying original poster did anything wrong, we don't know the story, but divorce and blended families can be hard on kids, especially if things get nasty between the parents, which the existence of a restraining order suggests they did. If she went far enough that there was a restraining order involved, I don't doubt she'd use her daughter to cause more drama. This was the first thing I thought as well. I'm willing to bet if his stepdaughter didn't use his home as a venue, the thought wouldn't cross his daughter's mind. Not the butthole. Go renew the restraining order if your ex and her family are harassing you, and explain to your daughter that she can either have the wedding at your home without her mother and her side of the family, or she can accept the $15,000 and have it elsewhere, but for personal safety reasons you will not let her mother into your home. Otherwise, rent porta potties. They have some super fancy ones for wedding venues, trailers, don't look or smell like porta potties, with a washroom. Original poster replies, I won't be renewing the order because I don't have any real standing this time. I also don't want to renew it because I do want to attend my daughter's wedding without causing any issues. But the outdoor bathrooms are an excellent idea. I have texted the idea to my daughter. I wouldn't give her anything at this point. She vilified you on social media and reignited an issue with your ex. You had offered a very reasonable compromise and she crap on it and you because she didn't get what she wanted. I wouldn't let your ex anywhere near your property. Also, if issues do arise and you seek a restraining order again, the fact that you were comfortable enough to have her on your property could look bad. Tell your daughter, I love you, but this isn't possible. And deduct $1,000 of that $15,000 for every extended family member that harasses you on social media or elsewhere. Honestly, I love the kids in my life, but if one of them blasted me on Facebook, they'd find that whatever financial help I was offering would dry up pretty quickly. You don't do that to family. And if daughter is old enough to get married, she's more than old enough to understand why dad doesn't want mom and company on his property. Dude, I stopped talking to my family and I never pulled that kind of crap. Who does that and expects to have any kind of relationship? F anyone who thinks there's room for negotiation at this point. $15K was a effing huge gift and she pissed it away. She deserves nothing after talking to and about her own father that way, especially considering the existing circumstances. If I did anything that got people harassing my dad like that, I'd be surprised if he ever spoke to me again. I have to agree with this. That sort of terrible tantrum shouldn't be rewarded. I agree. Your daughter putting this all over social media seriously escalated things, and the fact that you had to have restraining orders against your ex and her family should be reason enough for your daughter to be understanding. You adding the $15,000 is incredibly generous, and she's basically acting like an entitled brat. I wouldn't give her the $15,000 at this point after the crap she pulled. I get why she would want it there initially, but why would she want it now after all of the drama this caused unless she only cares about getting her way? I get that it's her wedding, but you have to do what's best for you and your family. She needs to be adult enough to understand that. Not the butthole. I get that this is your daughter, but why are you even questioning your decision here? Issues serious enough for an actual restraining order, screaming, people publicly trying to shame you on Facebook, not to mention you offered her money to do this elsewhere. Seriously. I don't agree with all these people telling him to get security and porta potties. The daughter's bullying him via social media and other people to get what she wants with absolutely no regard towards her father's feelings. He offered money for another venue as a compromise and the daughter is being entitled and selfish. Original poster should not be expected to open up his home/property to people who have threatened and harassed him. Especially now that they have their sights set on original poster's wife and stepdaughter. A person's home should be their safe place free from anxiety of others. Not the butthole. But how is it that you raised your, presumably, adult daughter in such a way that when you don't give her what she wants, she screams at you and goes after you on Facebook? And why do you now think the right thing to do is to give in to her antics by letting her do the wedding at your house after all? My own daughter just got married and I provided financial support. If she had screamed at me about anything related to the wedding, you can be sure that financial support would have been withdrawn. Original poster replies. My daughter has never raised her voice at me, but I can only imagine that other family members are riling her up. She also posted something on Facebook that didn't explicitly blame me, but my own sister made it into a circus that involved my ex and her family. I feel badly that my daughter is put under all this stress due to my ex and my issues. You seem to feel guilty that your daughter is caught in the middle of this. Why is that? It seems to me that you should feel angry that your daughter is insisting on your being harassed even after harassment so egregious the courts granted you in Roe. They don't do that lightly. Why aren't you mad at her? Because not everyone reacts to situations the same way? Just because you feel he should be angry doesn't mean that's the right, or only, reaction. If her mother is pushing her to do this, maybe even to force her family and herself back into your lives, shouldn't you be speaking to your daughter about this? Why is she insistent it be at your house when it originally wasn't? Does she think that you favor stepdaughter? Why? Why did she scream as her response and then blast your ass on social media? It seems selfish and entitled considering you told her you'd support her financially. I'd put money on the idea being the moms and her riling her daughter up and sending her ops way. You and your daughter need to talk. Maybe get a cup of coffee and sit outside, in a somewhat public place. Start off with this: I love you and I want with all my heart for your wedding to be an event you will treasure the memories of. At the same time, I have some real concerns, based on my experience with you, Mom. I know you wouldn't ask me to compromise my wife's safety or happiness for yours, so tell me, how do you imagine this working? And let her explain. Really, listen. And then, I hear you. But your mother has threatened this, whatever it was, in the past, and I believe her. What assurances can you make other than just telling me that nothing will go wrong? I trust you, but I don't trust her, so I'm not sure how to resolve this. What's your solution? She can't promise someone else's good behavior. People can only be responsible for their own. And finally, your wedding will be amazing wherever it is, because you and groom are an amazing couple. I can't imagine that adding this stress is worth the benefit of getting married in my yard. Are you sure I can't throw some money at this problem and take some stress off you? I'm sure we can find some neutral ground for a venue, so that nothing distracts from you on your big day. I have reasons for my boundaries, but I don't want my boundaries to become more important than your ceremony on your big day. Your daughter seems to be doing just fine with her own perceived stresses. I would not give in over the wedding, not the butthole at this point. If your wife and stepdaughter have to hide somewhere else for the day, the vote could change. If it's a circus now, it will be a full-on crap show if you allow this wedding to happen on your property. Your daughter tried to stir up trouble by posting about it on FB. Your sister saw the opportunity for pandemonium and ran with it. Your extended family are buttholes for not realizing you had a row on your ex for a good reason and don't want that mess back in your life, and your ex and her family have already started in on you. Take that all in, read it again, read it a third time for good measure, and then ask yourself if hosting this wedding would be a good idea. Not the butthole, but you need to shiny up your spine. But how is it that you raised your, presumably, adult daughter in such a way that when you don't give her what she wants, she screams at you and goes after you on Facebook? Did you miss the part where his ex's family all behave the exact same way? Two people raised her and she's obviously taking after her mother. It's extremely unfair to blame him for an adult woman's behavior that is obviously heavily influenced by her mother and her mother's family. Even if he did correct her behavior as a child, she had an entire another household there to indulge her behavior. But how is it that you raised your, presumably, adult daughter in such a way that when you don't give her what she wants, she screams at you and goes after you on Facebook? Did you miss the part where his ex's family all behave the exact same way? Two people raised her and she's obviously taking after her mother. It's extremely unfair to blame him for an adult woman's behavior that is obviously heavily influenced by her mother and her mother's family. Even if he did correct her behavior as a child, she had an entire another household there to indulge her behavior. I'm guessing it's the mom feeding her with that type of anger towards him. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.